Hi there, I'm Shaikh, and I'm here with my colleague Dana Shaddow. We both
Hi.
work in the Emotional DNA team, and today we're going to talk to you a bit about Netflix and the ad model that has been discussed very recently that Netflix looked to be moving into. There's a lot of speculation about what that model might be, but one of the interesting things that I think our team has uncovered is looking at Hulu, which is obviously a company that's had both models in play for some time. Right, Dana?
Yes, definitely. Just taking a look at the ad-supported model versus the ad-free model, and this is based off of obviously people who have watched these versions of Hulu. Their brand perception, at least through the lens of emotional DNA, has not really changed much. So when you're looking at an ad-supported version versus an ad-free version of this streaming service, they're not seeing much of a difference in originality or different versions of, adrenaline and heart. So the one thing we did notice is that the ad-free version came back with higher evaluation scores, but lower reach. So that's really just showing that while the ad-supported version does show higher numbers, it's not seen as a premium or as premium as the ad-free version. So I'm wondering how this is going to reflect on Netflix as they switch to offering this kind of lower tier.
Do you think, Dana, that the ad-free model, and people who subscribe to that, at least from the data from Hulu, do you think that people evaluate it higher because they're paying for it, or do you think they actually do think
They're
it's a high
paying
quality
for
service
it.
and they're prepared to pay for it because of their
Right. It's definitely chicken or the egg, but I do think that they are in their minds getting a higher value for their money. It is premium content. And I think just being able to pay for that experience of not being interrupted is worth it to them. So there are people who don't mind the ad break, but it'll be interesting to see how Netflix does it. I think the way they roll it out will determine kind of how welcome people are to these newer ad breaks. If it's a 90-second pre-roll that then ensures that their content won't be interrupted, I think that might be more welcome than, somebody an ad break kind of interrupting and maybe a demogorgon on Stranger Things.
Right. By the way, you know what I think would be a really interesting analysis would be looking at as you've done, breaking out the respondents who subscribe to Hulu ad free versus ad supported, and then looking at which Hulu shows they tell us that they watch. Because if those who are subscribing to the ad free model are primarily watching what we perceive as more premium content, then that makes a lot of sense. But if they're just watching Hulu and catching up with network television, then it puts that theory to bed.
Yeah, that's true.
As an interesting idea. But obviously for Netflix, the bigger question is the fall in or the group of subscribers that are likely to go down a tier and adopt the ad supported model appears to be a minimal number. A recent study by Whip Media, indicated that only 14% of people were of current subscribers, would entertain that idea and go down to an ad support model. Now, I would imagine they've done a lot of analysis internally, and they would imagine that kind of drop in plan would be offset by the wider number of total subscribers.
Yes, I think it'll be interesting to see, especially if they offer kind of an incentive to stay at the tier that people are at, whether it's having more access to premium content, whether it's released at an earlier date for those people and then released later for the lower tier, something to kind of keep people at the tier they're at. But there also has to be some incentive for people to come back if they left Netflix, or to join if they've never been a subscriber. So it's a fine line, I think.
And I think ultimately the ad supported model will have an impact on the content as well they're producing, because There are certain kinds of content, a lot of unscripted content that they're not currently, sort of in the game of. There are certain categories of unscripted. Obviously, they have been doing a fair bit of the true crime and the kind of outrageous dating type shows. But there's a lot that there haven't been in yet, and I would imagine there would be a growth in those kinds of shows because consumers are comfortable with ad breaks in that.
Exactly.
But then obviously advertisers as well have certain content standards. And
definitely.
And Netflix haven't had to necessarily be, sort of play that game.
We definitely love speculating about the future of streaming. And the great thing is we have the tools to help analyze it, whether we're looking at the overall landscape or specific programs and networks, whether it's content value, looking at acquisition or retention scores, or just looking at different emotional genres and really clustering by program type. Of course, we love to talk about this stuff, so please reach out to Magid. Thank you.